red oak, poplar wood combination project today. So, got two beams of wood, one poplar, one red oak. And the plan for this project was to take some 5-minute epoxy, glue it all up real nice and neat, make a basic blank out of it, and turn a fabulous bowl. But like so many other projects that I've done recently, things did not turn out too well. So we got everything cut down initially, got some 5-minute epoxy, slathering it on there, buttering the bread, if you will. And I'm thinking, you know what, we're going to do a pretty cool inlay with it. We're going to go poplar wood, red oak, and that didn't turn out too well. Had to end up getting several clamps together to actually glue the son of a bitch together. So once we got the blank kind of put together, I've noticed that it's a little oblong, it's a little off, but I'm thinking, you know what, we can put the faceplate on it and make something happen out of this, Captain. So got that screwed onto the bowl blank, and I should have known at this point this was not going to go as smooth as possible. So this is a giant sumbitch wood blank, but I'm thinking I got this. And then I decide to turn on the lathe, and you can see that my lathe is dancing all over my workbench. And at this point I'm going, okay, instead of attempting to make that work, I'm just going to go to my table saw and cut this down to the appropriate size to where I think it's large enough to where I can actually turn it and have the wood lathe not bounce all over the table. So table saw, cut that down. Went back for part two, and we still got a little bit of wobble on the wood lathe there. But I'm thinking, it's not too bad. I just got to get this into a basic cylinder shape, and I'll make it work. And I did. And for the most part, this part is probably the smoothest part of this entire project. Everything was going really well. I got a new sharpener for my wood chisels, and I'm feeling great. I'm thinking, you know what? We're just gonna get back to some basic woodworking. We're just gonna do some basic stuff, no epoxy, and we're just gonna gouge a nice bowl. And then I start to make a tannin, and that's going pretty well. Relatively, I'm feeling pretty good about my ability at this point, because we're just doing basic stuff. We're just doing a regular bowl. So get it basically down to the shape that I want, take the faceplate off of the bowl and put it back on the lathe, reverse it on the chuck, smooth everything out, got it reversed on there, make it into the basic shape that I want. Again, feeling great about the project up until this point. So here we are, continuing to work on it. Got a little bit of movement in the lathe, a little bit of shaking, but I'm thinking, it's not so bad. So then I got one of these things for the tailstock, thinking I'm going to go ahead and gouge out the middle of this thing without having to actually gouge it out with a chisel. And this is the first time that I've ever done this, and it kind of went how I expected it to go. However, it didn't really do much for my overall, project. But we'll get into that a little bit later in the project. So now I got it reversed on the chuck, and then boom, flies off the lathe. That was the first time. If you can tell by any of the other videos that I've done in the past, history is going to repeat itself. So here we go. Got it back on the lathe, and I'm just making it work. Here it is a little bit later, gouging out the material. And then we start to get a lot of wobble on the chuck, and my naive amateur ass didn't realize that maybe I did not put enough epoxy, and there goes, that's number 2. Didn't put enough epoxy on the first glue up, so I had to go back a second time and re-glue it. So same thing, took 5-minute epoxy and decided to re-glue it back together, because I'll be damned if we don't save this project. So got it put there, clamped it up, and I'm going to be like, okay, 5, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, we'll be back in business. And here we are, back in business 15 minutes later, the same day, basically just getting that residual epoxy off of the outer portions of the bowl. And I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna do okay. So then I go back to gouging out this bowl, and it's going pretty smooth initially. I'm doing pretty good. And yes, if you've made it to this part of the video, I realize I put the grain of the wood gouging out at the wrong angle. So I'm not, you should do it against the grain or against reverse wobble. Okay, so it flew off the lathe again. Had to go back up for the third time to re-glue it. So it came off 3 times, and this is the second glue up. This is not the same footage over again. This is a third glue up that I'm doing. So put it back in there, came back with it, did the same thing, getting the epoxy off of the outer edges, because this is the third glue up and the third time it's flown off the lathe. Anyway, I know I'm going against the grain on it. That's what I was trying to talk about earlier as far as gouging and why I had so many problems with it. So I realized that. Did that wrong. So we did some basic things that we shouldn't have. So then I go back, start gouging it out yet again. And I'm thinking, okay. And in all honesty, it started to wobble again. I did not allow the glue or the epoxy to set, and I was impatient, and that's the 4th time it flew off the lathe. So this is actually the next day up until this point. So I ended up gluing it back together yet again and left it overnight in the clamps, and I should have done that initially from the start, and I wouldn't have had these problems. So here we are, back again, 4th time, 4th glue up. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I just have to let this epoxy set, which it did. Went back, gouged it out, and we didn't have any problems from this point on. So if you're keeping track at home, that's 4 glue ups, 4 times it flew off the lathe, but we did not quit. So I managed to gouge out the rest of the bowl without any further difficulty, and gouging against the grain was definitely not good. So didn't want to get too fancy with it. We went from 180 grit all the way up to 400 with the sandpaper. And after this point, it went pretty smooth. I was happy that I didn't quit on the project. I was happy that I was able to actually make it work. And here we are putting that nice shine on it. That red oak really pops. That poplar wood looks really good. I wanted to do a different inlay. I wanted it to go poplar wood, red oak, poplar wood, red oak. But as you saw from the glue up in the beginning, it didn't turn out that way. But even though it flew off the lathe 4 times and I did 4 separate glue ups, we still got some project done. And it didn't turn out too bad. And here's the finished project. Could have gouged it a little bit deeper, but decided at the end of the day I was just happy to have a finished project and something to present. So trying to get back to basics, learning the capacity of my wood lathe, but overall really happy with it. It looks good. It was a big headache, but overall we didn't quit and we got something done. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, so project is done. We clearly had some difficulties with it. Oh my god, but we got it done. Somehow, some way. Keep coming up with funky ass beats like every single day, and there's no quit for this woodworker. In spite of how many times this thing might fly off the lathe, fly off the lathe, fly off the lathe. I think it flew off 4 times. I re-glued this at least 3 times. And you didn't even get to see all the glue ups in the damn video. But here it is, 2-tone wood, poplar wood with some red oak. Pain in the ass, but we got it done, and that's what's important on this channel. So I try to go back to basics with just doing wood, and obviously my lathe, in spite of almost doing this for 2 years now, I'm still learning the capacity of my lathe, but we have something to show for it, and I like it. I like the way it looks good. It's got a lot of cool texture, a lot of cool color. Overall, very happy with it. Not happy with how we got here, but happy the fact that we were able to get something fucking done. So, don't quit. Just keep working the problem. Work the problem. It's just like anything else. So, hope you liked it. Hope you enjoy watching my failures. And if I ever get enough subscribers and open a t-shirt store, become one of those guys, the first t-shirt I'm doing is something about woodworking flying off the lathe. Something like that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next project. So there you go. Bye.